All right, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. So we will play our intro and then we have a new friend coming in. Cathleena Hailley. I read her bio. It's pretty powerful. But as usual, we won't read the bio. We'll just get to know her in front of everybody. Let me get us set up on the intro, allow people to come in so we can share through the network. If these shows resonate with you, please share on YouTube, Facebook. As we're in a constant state of suppression, but it's really a activation that allow us to expand in our creativity in terms of how we extend these energies to each other. Anyway, here we go. How's it going, everybody? We got Cathleena Hailley in the house. It's our second show of the week. I think we got 18 shows planned for this week so far. We might have more, but we had a really powerful show with Alicia on the show before this, and I think it's going to pick up where we left off on the last show with this beloved sister. So let me pull her up here. Let me pull her up here real quick. And, oops. Let me find her. There we go. All right. There you go. How's it going?
Good. How's it going?
What's happening? It's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too.
Yeah, your story sounds very similar to the woman that I'm partnered with.
Oh,
yeah,
that's wonderful.
a lot of the same language, and a lot of women that have come on here too, by the way.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of divine feminine energy, although it's in men too. So
yeah, there's been a lot of what would you call it? June seemed to be the feminine going into full completion, that energetic field of availability, and then at least from my perspective, then the masculine energy shortly thereafter was fully and complete and readily available. So yeah, that's that resonates with me. Yeah. So when did you wake up?
Well, I have always been awake.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, as a small child, I think my first introduction was, when I came around in adult, which was my parents, I recognized that they would say something out of their mouth, and then I would hear their thoughts, and it was different. And then I would feel their emotions, and it was even different from that. And so it was very confusing as to what was truthful. So I kind of just learned to go in my head, and I became pretty analytical, and this was very young. And then I was fortunate enough that about the age of 6, my father introduced us to transcendental meditation.
Really?
Yeah. So I began to meditate as this little kid, and what happened was, and I didn't know this till later, but there were 2 people that would show up when I would first go into meditation, and I realized later it was Jesus and Mary Magdalene. and they would sit with me, and then we would sit holding hands like in this kind of triangle. And then I would go deeper, and I was taken to the Akashic records. And
Wow. Now
yeah,
you're how old are you when this was going on?
I was about 6.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't really realize it. And so when I went to the Akashic Records is when I met the Arcturians and Andromedans. A lot of, again, I didn't know who they were. I just remember seeing these like large pillars and this sort of building you go in, and I don't know. It just seemed kind of curious to me as a kid. You just felt like you're kind of on a tour.
So your dad introduced you to transcendental meditation. Did you tell him what was happening?
No, no. My father was very interesting. I think overall he knew a lot. I mean, he's not here anymore. I think he knew. I think he was just interested. He was a big Beatles fan, and so I think he just was interested himself. And I remember when he told us too. Of course, I'm a little kid, right? And he's like, "You want to go meditate?" And I'm thinking it's like either some food or some kind of game, right? So I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll try it." And I remember going through the ceremonies. I'm like, "What's this?" Like, I don't want to do this.
So did you have brothers and sisters too?
I do. Uh-huh.
So were they having the same type of experience you were?
No, not that I'm aware of. No.
Did you just know to keep it to yourself? But that's pretty profound.
I don't know if I just kept it to myself. I think, it was pretty chaotic. Because I was so on, I was very observant. I still am very observant. Like I notice everything. It's why I work with the Arcturians and why I'm into the sacred geometry and all that, because I have that kind of thing going on. There's so much. So I think that I was just so aware of everything going on that I just did the right thing, and I watched, and I kind of, managed everything and as a little kid. So I think it was just natural to me to do that.
So did you just continue to nurture it as time went on, or did you follow the path of most people that come on here, which is it got shut down, you go into adulthood, you work, family, and then there's kind of a reawakening, 2012, give or take,
Well, for me, it was kind of a different story. I think I really couldn't shut it down. So I felt like I couldn't find kind of my sense of direction in the physical world. I felt like I was really too much in my head, kind of like I knew too much. I didn't know what to do with it. So I ended up taking a path of business. So I ended up getting a business degree, and it was funny because as I was going to college, I ended up as a part-time job working at a chiropractor's office. And, I was through a series of events, I was introduced to massage at the time. And I thought, I wasn't going to go to massage school because I thought use your brain, not your hands. And of course, that was divine intervention because it pushed me to massage. And it was really in there. This is the funny thing. So I go into massage school and everybody's standing and they're holding hands in a circle and they're talking about this energy. And I'm like, what the hell is this? What is this energy thing? And it was like weird because as soon as I stepped into massage school, I was kind of like the guru of massage. Like everybody felt my energy, but I still didn't really know what was going on. I hadn't put, 2 and 2 together.
Right on.
Yeah. So, through the touch, I began to have all kinds of things happen, and a lot of things were going on. It just kept opening up. And so it kind of led me, eventually I realized that I did automatic writing. And once I was doing that, that's when I had real direct contact. And that's when they were really telling me like my whole contract and what it was here. And yeah.
And I think this conversation is important because there's so many people waking up now, and even though it's not back then, because there's no linear. I mean, so for all intents and purposes, it's happened at the same time. But my point is that they're going through stuff like this. Obviously, there's more support today than there was, say, in 2010 or 28 or whenever this happened to you.
Right.
But it's good for people to hear because they won't think they're crazy. Did you ever go through that where you thought, well, maybe I'm just the odd one out here? Maybe I'm.
Well, I always thought I've always been the odd one. I've always felt that, different. But it's crazy enough to me. like it was 1990, probably 95 or so, when I
Mm.
really had this awareness. And I don't know, I just didn't ever question it. For some reason, it just seemed, it was just kind of there, kind of normal. And I can't even say like I'm telling you I think it was normal, but it was just more, it was just an is for
Yeah.
me. Yeah, I don't know why it never I never questioned it, like, oh, actually I kind of thought, well, that's kind of cool, until I started to realize, actually it's funny, because I felt it was kind of cool and I was excited to participate and feel like, oh, I can do this. But as I stepped in and realized, because I went in kind of really naive, thinking, wow, this is totally cool. I've got this, understandings about energy, and I see all these people that are suffering, and wow, I can really help them. And then you go and you start to talk, and people, you know, either think you're crazy, or they're like have no idea what you're saying. And it was kind of, that was my wake up, like,
Yeah.
wow, you know, people aren't as receptive as I thought. I was so naive, like, this is really cool. But it wasn't that way. So,
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to pick from here. I love this.
yeah,
So before I go to the one, somebody asked a question in the YouTube,
sure.
but the Jesus and the Magdalene, a
Hmm.
lot of people, including myself, those would be like the first two that came in the door, right?
Sure.
Has that stayed with you? Where is that
Yeah.
relationship today? Do you
Yeah.
feel like it's something embodied in you? Does it feel external?
Mhm.
And like where has it evolved to?
Well, from what I understand, through some different, connecting with, like, Mikilla Sheldon is one I've had some sessions with and so on. But just connecting, understanding some things about myself. I have a lineage with the divine feminine. So we definitely with Mary Magdalene. And I feel, that whole time, and Jesus as well. It's like walking with him at that time and those times when he was here, although he's been an embodiment many different times. We're talking about the historic time and that.
Yes.
So yeah, that's part of my lineage, is the divine feminine collective, and even part of the work that I do is, as the reset of crystalline DNA, is in relationship to that, to those two, really the collective energies, the divine feminine and then the masculine, and really the balance, because that's kind of like what we'll say what I do as a frequency adjuster kind of energy is about, that balance. And so both of those energies are really part of the lineage with me. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
so that brings another one up.
Mhm.
So you've been connected, like you said, since the get-go.
Yeah.
Uh, we've kind of gone into 2020. I mean, at least from where I'm sitting from,
Mhm.
talking to a lot of energy practitioners, late 2019, and as we've gone through 2020, their practices are changing. Their
Mhm.
clients are changing.
Mhm.
Their modalities are being modified and are replaced. So
Mhm.
there's this whole different kind of thing going on, which is great because it's all leading to self-empowerment of the person that comes looking to expand.
Right.
But in terms of like um, the the practitioner, like you going to Michaela,
Mhm.
is that something that you commonly have done over the years? Is it something that you would recommend to people, even if they're pulling in this stuff, to go to a practitioner, based on their intuition or their discernment or whatever, to seek assistance from a mirror of themselves? Was it helpful for you? Has it been helpful for
Yeah.
you?
Yes, well, there's a lot in what you just said. Yes. Well, first of all, of course, because we are downloading huge amounts of information, we're expanding multidimensionally, we're connecting. And it's really all about unity consciousness, and it is about community. And absolutely 100%. I mean, I connect with many light workers. I'm in Ethan Fox's Lightworker program. And one of
Mhm.
the huge gifts of being in that program is the connection with all these amazing people and being able to connect and work with them. And that is it's a gift just within itself, of just my humanness, and it's excitement and fun. I enjoy it.
Mhm.
But from, from an energetic level, I mean, it's all like soul fragments and pieces and connections. Yeah, I think it's what we're supposed to be doing, kind of. And I mean that gently,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think
Well, I guess
100%,
it is a form of co-creation and
100%.
collaboration, which is
Yeah.
which is really up. in 2020, it's really starting to.
Absolutely. Hmm.
So like, I'm just curious about it because I'm not a practitioner.
Hmm.
I'm partnered.
That you say you aren't.
Well, I'm not a traditional practitioner. Let's put it
Correct.
that way.
Correct.
It's not something I do day in, day out,
Mhm.
not by traditional methods anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I am, partnered up with someone who is for 20 years, a lot like
Sure.
your story, actually.
Sure. Sure.
So I can see that. And I know that, like in Australia, she had a network of sisters that they worked with, and that
Hmm.
type of thing went on. And just talking with her, some of the things that went on in her life. So I know that avenue has been explored. I'm just wondering what that looks like today. Is it more for the human aspect, or the I don't know how do I put it, the multidimensional aspect? Do you
The
get?
energetic. Well, here's
Yeah.
an interesting thing that I find is that in this expansion you're talking about, or asking or observing whatever of our practices per se, expanding. To me, it's more about, the oneness with who I am as a multidimensional being and just sort of sharing that. And yes, I mean, we're sharing it in a capacity that has financial reward and so on, those
Hmm.
sorts of things,
Hmm.
because this is the way we are in the world. However, I think that the bigger part of that is about the energetic community and the connectedness and all of that is just one with all of us. So it's almost like when I'm looking at it sort of from an energetic perspective, it's like if you sort of look out and imagine you could see the air, and it has a quality to it. And each one of these practitioners is like sort of an element or an aspect of this air. And
Yeah.
as you interact with them, it creates all these different, um, you know, abilities, so to speak, of that air doing different things and whatever. So it's not, it seems to be part of the evolution, of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, and like, do you find that when you interact or engage with another practitioner, is it more organic? Does it just kind of flow into it, or is it something you go out and seek?
No, it's all organic. It's all
Yeah.
organic.
So
I mean,
it.
every
Yeah.
once in a while, I might seek it out.
Mm.
Somebody like Michaela, I might seek out because I might have a question or something that I
Yeah.
just really want more direct,
Yeah.
communication with a guide or something. Yeah, something like that. But for the most part, it's very organic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
Hmm.
feel like that the need to do that, or the reason for that, at least in part, is there it's probably a dumb question I'm going to answer while I'm asking it, parts of our connections that are blocked for some unconscious reason, that it's just easier for someone else to step in and kind of guide us and direct us to get our mind out of the way?
Well, I would say yes to that, but really how I would answer that is that this idea of block is really not recognizing what authentic truth is. And
Mm.
so, yeah, I think as we step more into that, some of the ways in which we step in that, depending on who we are, like I mentioned to you that I think one of the things for me is because I came in very on, but I also really directed my energy to the mental. And with all of the old, this false matrix and all of those energies there with that huge mental construct, if you have too much of your energy, you're basically like taking your consciousness and putting it in a closed box. And
Hmm.
so, when that happens and you're attempting to break out of that box, you might need, like a voice. You almost think about it somebody you really trust, that you
Mm.
can go, okay, yes, I can do that. And so some of that is what's going on now,
Yeah.
and
Well, that would
getting.
make sense. I mean, if we're pulling from multidimensional aspects that are
Mhm.
aspects of ourselves, and we're embodying everything here in this particular realm,
Right.
that we would be, uh, you know, we would have an experience where the physical representation of that occurs, which is really, Michaela is an aspect of you, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, like,
Right.
you know what I mean? So it's just, it would make sense. I've never really dissected it like that. A lot of people talk about the Akasha,
Hmm.
you know,
Yes.
and I listen to them, and there's so many different versions, I guess. I can remember only because I was, ignited, or, there was an impetus from doing these shows, and then I go, when did I do that? And then I remember going to this place, and there was a books and a library atmosphere, but much different than like an Earth library.
Yeah.
What's your experience been with the Akashic? What does it look like? What does it feel like? How does it work? I mean, can you kind of go into that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the Akashic Records to me, like I said, looks like almost like a giant museum sort of thing. It has these big pillars, and I saw these beings of light that would stand outside, and then I walk in, and you could see all these rows of they kind of look like books, but they're more energetic. And then when I saw it the first time I went, it was like a pillar sort of right in the center, and there was a book there, and that was like my book, and it was open, and I could just read a page or something on it, and it was again more energetic. So this is kind of the beginning. Now it's more kind of like a more knowledge. It's almost like just sort of this energy bubble, if you will, that has all of these different pieces. And they either download, or I can just kind of look at them, and as I look at them I sort of become them. So I think that for me, I believe that we have the vision based on who we are,
Yeah.
because it's how we are. So when I looked at it very young, it was much more of a structural, because that would have been what I would have been aligning to.
Right.
Now that I'm much more comfortable in all of the energetic, right?
So those things that were more familiar to you were what you kind of went to until you got to a point where you understood,
Yes.
I'm all of this.
Yeah.
So you utilize this for yourself and for your clients?
The Akashic Records? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, yeah. So what I've come to understand about my particular energy is that I have like a lineage of what's called the life architect. And this life architect is an energy of, so my energy is a frequency, I'm calling it frequency activator, adjuster, right? And I have what's called like perfect pitch is what they say. And it's being this life architect means that my energy has the ability to know sort of the perfect frequency, say, of you or anybody else. And it's not like I know it, but it just does. So when I come near your energy, there's this automatic adjusting going on towards that. And because of that, then my energy is also adjusting and looking at all archetypes, and then of course the whole Akash and all of that with it. So it's kind of like it's doing that, on this bigger level. So when it was first happening to me, it was very weird, because I could come around people and I would experience not just seeing them, whatever, but I was really experiencing like everything about them. And I would go into crowds and different things, and I didn't know what was going on. And so I had to try to figure out how to manage that.
Yeah. Like super sensitive empath,
Cosmic
empath.
Yeah, exactly. With all these different things going on. And then once I realized that my energy was naturally adjusting, then I stopped like trying to do it, because you can imagine if it's doing it automatically and then I'm trying, it was too much coming at the person. So I just now step back and let it expand.
Yeah, I guess where because I have a natural curiosity about everything.
That's
question everything. But if I look at like, I didn't know what I was doing. I met Morgan, so she's an energy practitioner, and she plays in dimension, and she was talking this language, and I'm like, that's actually, I read it in her bio on Facebook when I started stalking her. but it made sense to me. Sure. I knew it was real. And then of course I got introduced to her, and then things started. So I look at, okay, if I want to tap into whatever I want to tap into, I can tap into it.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
But then the Akashic is like over here, right? Like, so in other words, that's why I asked the question, what does it look like, feel like, smell like, what's it like? How does it work? Because I've heard two different things. One of the things I heard, I hate to use that word, but one of the things that came into my field was that all of the multiversal and universal information was stored when we came into this realm, or when Earth was created, and this whole thing was laid out, and that we sit on it. Basically, we're with it. So I guess it's kind of two questions. One, there's no right or wrong. Does that line up with anything you've been told about the Akashic? And two, is there a difference between, let's just call it the morphic fields or the etheric fields in the Akashic?
Well, what I understand is that so everything that can happen, has happened, is happening all at the same time. So that is a given. And this idea of the Akash is really, it's your life experiences, but it's also, so yes, it's all with you, but I think it's also shifting and changing in terms of it, because we have a duality, we have, the free will. And so every time you make a decision, it's like a new timeline, which is a new aspect of the Akash.
Right.
So it's kind of all the above, what you said.
No, I get what you're saying. Yeah. I get, two things come to mind. One is, I remember when I was on the streets, when I first woke up for those first couple of years, and I was in communion all the time. One of the first things they told me was, just understand this: everything you've ever done or even thought is going to be known by everyone. And of course I went into immediately went into fear, but then I realized what that meant, as an individual goes, so goes the collective. So I knew it meant that for everyone. I thought, oh, well, that's a straight telepathic environment. What a great way to get rid of all of our human illusions, and get back to square one. Remember that. I forgot what the other thing was that you just jogged my memory on, but that's okay. Now, another big thing that's coming into play for people, so many people, and I know you know this because of the work you do, and the way you reacted when I said people are changing and everything's kind of evolving in terms of energy practitionerships. And so it's like, where the galactics, you mentioned in your own journey, you went to the Akashic, you saw these beings. Later on, you figured out who they were, or they told you, or whatever. I didn't know anything about galactics when I met Morgan, as an example, just as an example for so many people out there. And I just never had a feel for it. It was angels and Jesus and Magdalene and Ascendids and stuff, but it wasn't any galactic. How did you come to understand that's who you were dealing with? Did they direct you? Did they guide you? Do they have certain specificities? I mean, I know you mentioned in your bio, and you mentioned here, I believe it was the Arcturians.
Yes.
And I'm not sure who the other one was. Andromedans. Okay. Right.
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I think initially I had, again, I was working, this was a very long time ago. I met a medium that introduced me to a lot of these different groups. And this was at the time when I realized I did automatic writing. And so at that time, when I did the automatic writing, there were some groups that would come more direct energy. Others were telepathic, and there were these different levels of telepathic. Now, I didn't realize that they were these Arcturians, Andromedans, all that. I just, she referred to them as a techno group and these different groups. So I didn't really have that kind of knowledge. But I began to feel them. I could feel the difference between the energies that were going on. And later, I ended up channeling this metaphysical instrument, which I don't know if you read about, but I have what's called a frequency adjuster, and we can talk about that in a minute. But and that actually was channeled from the Arcturians, but I didn't really know that that's who they were. And I guess it wasn't until I started really interacting really with Ethan and getting myself more comfortable. It was all about comfort for me. I had to incrementally both let the world know what I knew and get comfortable with it. So I had been given this information years before and all kinds of resources, but I just kind of bypassed it. Like I would just read it like it was intriguing, but not connected to me. And I think it was because I had, this fear of needing to assimilate well into the world, and not be too out there. I had to do it in this incremental way.
Curse of a starseed.
Yeah, right. And yeah, right. So that's really, I think, for me. So I think that we always know, and they're always communicating with us. I think when I look back now, I realize it was a continual, basically, I guess, trying to get me to know,
Yeah, yeah,
but I would just kind of read it and, but again, I was like, okay, that's somebody else, but I'm not ready to go there
yeah.
until I was. And then it just, you know.
Wow, wow. And so it too, because like I look at it and I'm like, I'm talking about my own experience in in the context of trying to put myself in these folks' shoes that are just having these experiences.
Yeah.
And so it was like night and day. I mean, to me, like, because I'm like, okay, so this is the ether world or the non-physical world. I don't understand everything. These different essences pop in. I had the elemental and the nature being community over here, which was more easy to understand.
Mm-hmm.
It was a more organic thing. Then the galactics come in, and it's like, okay, what is this? Like somewhere in between this space, there's this other thing going on, and I had a really hard time trying to figure that out. I'm like you, I was like trying to understand it, which
Yeah,
that's probably the first thing we could recommend to anybody. Don't try to understand anything, just take it in and say I surrender.
exactly.
But they do seem to have specific information or
Mm-hmm.
specific specialties. Now, you mentioned in your bio that you have memory, or I think, I'm not sure how you put it, but incarnated as
Uh-huh.
both Arcturian and Andromedan. Are
Okay.
you speaking to and I know at the end of the day everything's one, and I'm not trying to make fun of that,
Right.
but you also had to brought up lineage a while ago. Do you feel that you're speaking to direct aspects of you, maybe those incarnations that you are and were, in terms of, say, Andromedan or Arcturian?
I would say yes. And like a collective aspect of that.
Okay.
Sure. I think so. Yeah.
So almost like let's say you're Arcturian. Maybe I'm just trying to like say it a different way, I guess, and see if I got it for people. So you were let's say you are and were an Arcturian, okay,
Mhm, mhm.
and in that incarnation, somehow or another, as the group elevated and expanded and ascended, you congealed with a certain energy complex, and this is who you're dealing with. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Well, yeah, I think it's like a soul fragment or aspect that
Yeah.
you are part of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an energetic connection, sure. And then you have awareness of kind of like who you were in that, with that collective.
Right.
Like with the Andromedans, I worked a lot with the portals. And so that's why I understand a lot about portals and things here and what I'm doing. And I'm working with the Earth grid. I'm doing a lot of things with that. And same with the Andromedans is a lot with the Arcturians is a lot with the whole sacred geometry piece and a lot of the technology, which is where I have the frequency adjuster technology, and another one I'm actually just started to create.
Hmm.
So these are the aspects. And so, and like with the divine feminine, all of these, we'll say, galactic or energetic aspects are really, the way I understand it is they're kind of like, parts, if you will, or, I don't know. They're parts, I guess, parts of our energy itself, but they have like this lineage, a substance, so to speak, about that part
Hmm.
of your energy,
Right.
of your frequency.
Excellent. Some people talk about lineage, all right, and then there's others that neither one's right. I'm not saying, I'm not judging anything. I'm just saying this is what's out there in my curiosity to try
Yeah.
to understand it better without being too mental. Is Then there's another which I kind of gravitate to, which is it doesn't really matter. I'm everything. whatever I need is going to come in when I need it, and that type of thing. And I'm not saying that's perfection, because I know it's not, because I'm asking the question. Others talk about the lineage. I've seen people say you need to know your galactic origin, and that boggles my mind, because I think, well, wait a minute, I'm talking to Arcturians, Andromedans, Pleiadians, Sirians, Alpha Centaurians. Uh, I know this one and that one. I know my aspects. What's my origin? I mean, we're mutts here, we mutts there. I mean, how, how important, in your opinion, from your perspective, is it to familiarize ourselves with our lineage, be it galactic or otherwise?
Well, I think the only real importance, if it's importance, is just for our humanness to get comfortable with why we're here, and really our highest and best um, purpose for humanity. So
Yeah,
I think it's more of where we come from. It's like, as you're coming from this false matrix, which you're really shut down, and you're this, just thinking you're this little person running around. I
yeah,
feel like as you are awakening, and to connect with another group or family is helpful, because it begins to allow you that greater permission
yeah,
to step out of what was familiar. Other than that, I don't think it's super important
yeah,
necessarily in that way, right? But it's like a stepping stone. It allows the individual to feel more comfortable.
yeah,
So I think it also, for me, it begins to explain a lot of what you already knew, and a lot of the things you're drawn
yeah,
to, and the directions that you end up going in your energy.
yeah,
Once you connect to your greater family, so to speak, you go, oh, nah, now I know why.
yeah,
And that's very comforting, I think, right?
yeah,
Especially in this world, because as you see what's going on, the craziness is going on, is all the recognition of all this separation, segregation, all the things that we've been having. And I think that, on one side of the coin, understanding or getting so much knowledge about your galactic can unintentionally create a sort of a separation,
yeah,
which I don't think is a good thing necessarily in that way. However, I think as we're recognizing that we've already felt separate,
yeah,
and so now we want to feel inclusive in something, so that way we're waking up, right, to our galactic lineage, and then we wake up to the fact that we're really all connected to all the different lineages. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it's like, to me, a reverse stepping stone, or a reverse process of what we were indoctrinated with in this false matrix, which is all that separation, find your group.
yeah. That's a good point. And what's your perspective on this whole, like it's been very noticeable to me the last couple of months, and I know it's been very intense.
Hmm.
June was very intense, and so far July, it's only 13 days, but it feels like 3 months already. But so there's been a lot of amplification
Hmm.
of the polarities, even in the light worker circles.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to observe, to see the projections that are going on. And for me, because I'm very sensitive to, I'm like you, kind of, in a way, I can't explain it like you did, but like, you've got that perfect pitch thing.
Hmm.
And I know my bailiwick has always been to put stuff together and put it out, you
Hmm.
know, in the best vibrational frequency as possible.
Right.
So I read that stuff in the field, and I see people that have pretty strong followings, prominent people that have had longevity, that are, attaching to the separation,
Hmm.
to put it bluntly.
Hmm.
Uh, do you think that there's going to be a point where that goes away? Do you think this stuff is playing out so it will go away, showing itself so it will go away? Um, or do you see this continuing, to this divide, the polarities, let's say the 3D, 5D, continue to both be amplified, and I don't know, people make a choice? I don't know. How do you think
Yeah.
that's all going to go down?
Yeah. Well, I do think that there's a big divide, and I think there's a lot going on. my take and what I recognize and suggest is that it's all about neutrality. I think it's extremely important to find neutrality, true neutrality. And true neutrality is absolute neutral is the 0 point of truth. And that's the place with zero judgment, no judgment. And I feel like that's important, that's the place to be in, because that's that now moment,
Yeah.
and we don't really know how to do that. And I feel like that is the most important thing
Yeah. I
to
agree
do
with you.
now, in general,
Yeah.
period.
It's hard. It's not hard. I'm not going to say
Right.
that. We got to be
Yeah.
so careful about what we say now, right? But I
Yes.
mean, it is weird because it's like can't have judgment about judgment. It's like,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? So you can't even have judgment about judgment, and yet you still get presented things to formulate a perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
But it does seem like it's getting easier.
Mhm.
A really interesting thing that hit me is I noticed that as I was doing my work, that several people who kind of have a forecasting element to their intel.
Mhm.
We're talking about how June was going to be like a totally like a flip, which it was, and how the year goes on, and we won't recognize things by the end of the year and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Um, One of the things that um, more than one person, I'll talk about Franco Di Nicola because he's more specific. Talked about July, August, and about as things stood, half of September, all being about integration.
Mhm.
All being about integrating everything from the physical body all the way up to whatever. And it just seems to me, after all we've been through, first of all, that makes sense to me because
Mhm.
it's like, how much stuff do we have left? And then, secondly, what's going to happen after? Because if we look at the micro of our own experiences of getting triggered or bringing in energy, and then we come out, we process it, align, and come out. There's always a huge expansion, and they're getting bigger. I can't
Right.
imagine what that would look like on a collective scale when we come out the other end of at least a vast majority of integration,
Mhm.
individually and collectively.
Well, I think, because we're creator beings, right? We're either creating consciously or unconsciously. So what we've been doing is creating unconsciously, which
Yeah.
what we're taking our consciousness literally, and we are, you know, shrinking it inside the physical brain, inside this basically finite geometry, into these belief systems that we've been taught. And so when we do that, then what kind of exudes out of us is that finite, that all of the crap that's going on, right?
Yeah.
Well, when you do what you're talking about and you have this giant expansion and wake up, well, what we've got now is we've got all of this consciousness now interacting with all of the world. So that's really this amazing thing. And that's huge, because that's the idea of that neutrality and why it's so important, because in neutral, your consciousness, and we're talking about different, right, from conscious versus
Yes.
subconscious, but the consciousness, right,
Yeah, I
your
get
energy.
what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So when your actual consciousness is expanded into the collective, I mean, that's huge, and that's when we really can begin to create what we want. And there's another piece with this where we have to understand that because we are consciousness, because we are creators, we are creating, that's what we're doing. We're never finished.
Right.
We're continuing, right? So, in this place of neutrality, you really have all possibilities. And so we really are creating. And so if individuals would just recognize that when they're in that place of neutral, they're not in neutral as we've been taught. You're actually in the most fantastic 0 point of all possibilities. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, have a collective or a group sit in that and
Yeah.
just, right? I mean,
Yeah. That's what I
and
mean. It seems like, people talk about like the, excuse me, the solar flash, the universe winks its eye at us at all the same time. And we walk outside and everybody's like, oh, hey, you know, uh, I don't know what that's going to look like. But to me, even though, to a degree, everything seemed to be kind of seamless. Like you were talking about, like you went into the Akashic, you saw these beings. Later on, you figured it out. It's like you get what you can take as you go.
Yeah.
But like, it just seems like at some point, and to me, it would seem like post-integration, there'd be this massive, like, aha. Maybe
Yeah.
not everyone in the world, but there seems to be things in the world now, such as COVID, such as quarantine, such as the separation, racism, things that are popping up that everybody's being affected by.
Yes.
Like the big stuff. And so I think, well, that must mean that we're all getting to another place in terms of the epiphany, revelation, frequency, that type of thing. But I don't know. It's just my curiosity, and I think you've got a pretty good perspective, unique perspective, to comment with. But now tell me about your technology. The Arcturians, these are coming from the Arcturians. Is that right?
Came from the Arcturians. Yeah. I don't know if you want to see it or.
Whatever you want to do. You want to share the screen if you got something on computer, whatever you want to do.
Well, I can just show it up in front if you want. It's like right here. I don't know if you can see it, but this is what it looks like here. This is the frequency adjuster. I don't know if you can see it. It actually looks like a piece of wood, right? But it's very specifically designed, and it has 12 points on either end for our 12 aspects of ourself. And it has 10 sides around it. We have 11 body systems. So each one of these lines represents a body system. It has some special crystals that are inside it, actually. It was made of a very special wood called babunga, which is the second highest frequency wood on the planet.
Wow.
And so what it does is actually it creates a 0 point for your human template. So this is basically you without an ego, is what it does. And yeah, the Arcturians, I always say this, I channeled this, actually, I said if it was just for me, because it was for me initially. And why it came to me was because I was having this difficulty getting to this neutral that we're talking about, because we're constantly getting knocked out, and there wasn't any place kind of to rest, to feel like you could just take a breather, so to speak, in that 0 point, because everything was constantly moving us into all these different directions. So that's what this does, is this gives you that is 0 point in your energy. It's like when you attune to it, and the attunement process is really easy, which I have a video on the frequencyadjuster.com site. So I have a video about it. But, once you attune to it, you're attuned no matter where you are in the world. But what it does is so your frequency that you have is aligning to this, and this is the 0. So your frequency is coming in like this. And we have in our auric field, like over our lifetime, things that we've collected, belief systems and so on. They sit like little magnets in the field, and so they collect more of them to you. When your frequency is aligning to this, it's actually taking out those particles out of your auric field so that you're not grabbing more of those experiences to you. So that's the idea of coming into the 0 point. It just helps you. It's not a have to, it's not a necessary. It's just it makes it easier. That's all.
It's one way up the mountain. Too,
exactly. Right? It just makes it easier.
So it's okay. So it sounds like it, and I want to try to get some clarity on it. So it sounds like it could be, it's a couple of different things I'm seeing. One is if I'm in a state and I'm kind of scattered, like I've got stuff going on all over the place, kind of like I don't want to say grounding, but a founding, like more like a foundational tool to get back to center. Okay.
Yes. And and it's also a diagnostic tool, because the way in which you attune to it is you do this Om for 9 seconds. And so if you do the attunement again, like on a daily basis, and the Om should be Om, if it goes Om kind of weird, then it's letting you know that something is trying to invade that body system in the energetic, and you can clear it before it ever gets in. So that's the other thing. It's also a tool too. In groups, you can use it as kind of a stationary point. So if you're somebody that is a practitioner and you work in groups, you can work independently with each individual by having this frequency adjuster. What it'll do is it's creating the 0 point for you, so that you can kind of aim your energy, so to speak, independently while you're in the group, which is actually pretty cool too.
Wow, that is cool. Yeah. And so it reminds me a little bit of what Shakina Rose has downloaded, and and she's made them. I don't know exactly what they're called. They look a little different. I think they're made out of copper and some other metal.
Mm-hmm.
They look like plumbing, implements, but it's the same type of thing. Not specifically zero pointing, but they've got different attributes.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's lots
So
of different. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so like yours, this one that you've downloaded, is it individualized? Like you talked about, the practitioner could use it
Mm-hmm.
in a group session,
Mm-hmm.
but that's his or her
Yes,
tool.
this is individual for each person. So each person has their own, and so what it creates is the 0 point for you. And I just am actually creating another technology. So this one, so we have like I said, a human template, like per se. And why the template is important is because as energy, as our consciousness has the ability to expand, right? To keep expanding.
Yeah.
And this idea of this template means on how our ability to create. So because we've chosen to come into a physical form, we have sort of a container, so to speak, in which we can create, and we can do unlimited amounts of creating inside the particular container, but we can't necessarily change the container. That's the idea that I came in a physical body, so I can't necessarily change the whole outside frame of the body, but I can have unlimited abilities within the body. But the only way for me to really do that is if my so-called the container is intact, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's what this does. This creates that 0 point for this container to be intact, which means then my consciousness can now completely freely, infinitely interact with it. And that way I have 100% ability to create whatever within this physical body.
Yeah.
And so then the next step with the humanity would be the earth itself. We also have the template of the earth itself. So there's an earth template. And there's a second technology that I've just created, I'm going to be putting out soon, which is the earth template, to actually connect you 0 point with that too, because that's also getting kind of tampered with.
Yeah, I get this. Yeah.
And
so, and one last question on that. So like in terms of like the alignment aspect of it, the 0 pointing aspect of it, over the years, obviously there's been a lot of talk about shadow work, inner work. Does this somehow fast track it, or at least alleviate some of that tedious work, that we've all been a part of? I mean, I'm familiar with.
Well, what it does in a way that having a 0 point means that your stuff's going to come out, and so it fast tracks it in that way. I mean, you're still right, so you're still going to be.
It's like getting tased.
Yeah.
It's like getting a cosmic tase instead of a cosmic 2x4. You're just getting tased.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense, and that's really true. I think that's what I was getting at too earlier.
Yeah.
I didn't finish, but when you were talking about, what's been going on energetically, one of the things that came to mind was, I noticed when there's a huge elevation, because I talked about the integration and then you elevate and wow, what's it going to look like? But I also noticed that much of the time after a huge elevation, that you kind of got to be on your toes the next day or two.
Yeah.
Because you just, the same concept you're talking about here. You hit 0 point, then all your stuff comes up. So
well, that's what the advantage to, like, again, having this means it's so your stuff comes up, but because you have this, now you're going to be able to come back to that center very easy. And that's really, again, I think why it was channeled is because we've had all our stuff come up, but we haven't had a way to come back to center, and be able to ground in. And so that's what this gives you, is the ability to do that.
I love to ask people like you, what do you do when you get triggered on a personal level?
What do I do when
how do you handle you?
How do I handle? Well, I have a frequency adjuster, so that's something and I hold that. But I'm really big on just allowing my emotions. I just really, I cry a lot. I'm human, and I do, and I just, and what I do, and I kind of really talk to myself a lot. I say, what do I really want? And I'm asking myself, I'm having those dialogues. That's what I do. And I just really let go. And I say, what am I really doing? What is it all about?
What is it in me that I'm not seeing?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. I'm really honestly not afraid to look at myself and say,
Yeah,
what am I doing?
that's it. That's the key.
It's-
Do you, have you? And I don't. I haven't asked anybody this, but given the expansion collectively, and then you know, in the context of what I had said earlier about talking to so many energy practitioners and what they've noticed in their practice,
Mhm.
um, do you, are you is there a decline or a fading out of this of the with your clientele, or what you've noticed even in the field, where there's less externalization, less blame, less blame laid out externally, less looking for love externally? Are people, do you feel like there are people starting to be self-reliant, to thine own self be true, to really, it's never them, it's always me, and to have that self-talk like you're talking about?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, that 100% really of my practice is about that. It's about
Yeah.
people having absolute full recognition, yeah, that it really isn't outward. I don't, there was a period of time several years ago that a lot of that was, of course, your childhood and da da da. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that those things don't come forward, but yes, I'd say that now people are very much recognizing and I think there's a place where people feel stuck with that
Hmm.
information. It's like they do have the awareness that it's me, but they don't know the next steps to
Yeah.
let go.
Yeah, they can't get rid of the angst and the,
Yes.
and
Yes.
again, I don't do a lot of stuff like that, but that's one of the reasons I don't, because um, I have a tendency to not have the patience or the tolerance. I mean, once you know something, you know it, and then it's a matter of applying it. But like you said, maybe the next, for some folks, it's the matter of they really don't know where to go with it, and maybe that goes back to what we started at the top of the show with, where if you're waking up, if you realize it's not them, it's me, that it's okay, whether you're a healer or not, to seek support and assistance and a collaboration from somebody who might be able to show you something you can't see in yourself.
Well, and I'd say that that's extremely important. I'd say that's the key right now is to recognize that's why so many of us are really coming forward. I mean, I've been doing this over 30 years in different capacities and so on and but really stepping forward more and more now, as we do and I think this is why it's so important is because they're really in not in a strange way, but there's a lot of soul fragments, a lot of attachments, a lot of different things and being able to go to practitioners and clear those. A lot of the work that I do when I'm working with a person, I see the template. So if I move in your energy, it's like a template shows up and then I can see whatever shows up on this. And some is very physical, very immediate, but then others it's a lot of timelines, a lot of soul lineage, a lot of fragments, a lot of interference, a lot of different things. And so being able to help shift those, and it's all based on belief systems, so it's still self responsibility,
Yeah.
but these some of these are so things are changing so fast, timelines are moving so
Aren't they?
fast, right? Yeah, that people are shifting so quickly that's why I think definitely very important to know if a particular practitioner or something can be helpful,
Yeah. Be
just
open. Yeah.
be open.
You got to be open. I mean, you got to be that applies to 360 degrees. I mean, that you got to be open
Exactly.
to dark, to light, to
Yeah, no,
help, to whatever.
yeah.
It's absolutely you can't be uh, in tune if you're not open. I mean, you're blocked. You're closed. You know what? Yeah, what's the opposite of open? Closed. Um,
And it's a gift to do that. I have great joy in working with a lot of these practitioners.
yeah.
It's a wonderful gift.
Were you downloading in the 90s, in the early 2000s? Were you downloading, hey, we're going to have an ascension. This is why we're here. This is what's going to happen collectively. You're going to have a great divide, all that stuff.
Well, I was downloading, I don't know to all that degree. I mean, I was downloading lots of things like healing centers and this technology, all these kind of things, all for helping humanity kind of
Yeah.
awaken and all of that. So I didn't get it like that, but I did get it in here's tools kind of, you know.
Have you got to the point, did you ever get to the point where you're like, oh my God, finally it's happening. Finally we've arrived, not arrived, but finally, you know, it's going down. Like this is the real deal. This isn't a practice. This isn't a fantasy. This is actually happening.
Yeah, but it wasn't exactly like that. It was more like, oh wow, this is it. You know, like,
Yeah.
wow, you know, yeah, we're here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow,
That feels like it's landing more and more.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a quick download last night when we laid down. We always put our hands together, and it wasn't any talking, but this whole montage came in, like showing me and me and her and everything, the journey. It was just like a real fast, like almost like your life flashing.
Hmm.
And then it got to the moment, to the present. And I'm open my eyes and I'm looking around thinking something's gonna appear or something. And it was like, no, you're here. You have a house now. You have a base. You have each other. You have your work. And it was just like really simple little declarations and statements of enjoy yourself now. And I
That's
was
so
like,
great.
wow, that was different, you know, but it very much brought my human aspect into further alignment, you
That's
know.
beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
But I think that's, you know, these things happen to individuals, and it's a parallel in the collective. I mean, there's no doubt. So, do you have anything that you wanted to talk announce or anything? You got anything going on? You mentioned your website a minute ago. I'd highly recommend that you put it. And by the way, thank you for writing me in March.
Oh, sure.
Thank you for being friends with me. I apologize for not answering because I
That's
have a
okay.
hard time with that.
Sure.
Thank God that you know this happened and you
Yeah.
came through Morgan.
Yeah. It's all
But I would recommend putting any links because people are
sure.
going to be interested.
Sure.
I'd put it on Todd Medina Facebook page and then also on Soulogy One Studios YouTube channel
Okay, great. Yeah, sure.
because
I'd love.
the people will, you know, be asking, and I think a couple already did ask. But is
That's
there anything that you've got that you wanted to talk about, or if you want to dance or sing or light language or do a
uh,
blessing or whatever you.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I will share one thing and then I can actually do an activation if you want. But so one of the things that I'm also being called to do kind of as a collective is like I mentioned about the earth template. So having this new technology, I'm actually going around to different locations, physical locations on the earth. And I was going to go to some that would have been in other countries, but because of the way I can't fully travel, I'm actually doing some of this through Stargate. So I've done one that was in Florida that is in association with Machu Picchu. And what it is that's happening is this is all for our creative process right now. So we have a certain movement of how creative energy moves through the physical body, and it does align with the earth because we're one with the earth. And so some of these movements have been interfered with, which is not allowing for a lot of creativity to actually show up in physical reality. So a person can have these wonderful ideas, they can bring it into their heart, they can have all this, but then they can't fully bring it into the world. And a lot of that is because of literal movement of energy into like the earth, and then from the earth back up into you, into your heart to bring it. And so I've been guided to kind of go around the world and the earth and do this. So right now it's going to be in the States. And what individuals are going to be able to experience is, so there's this, we'll call it sort of the behind the scenes aspect that I'm going to do that is doing some ceremony, but then which is in front that people can do. And like from this place in South Florida, I have a picture right now that I'm going to put on a website, and you'll be able to look at the picture. You can actually watch, it's just a video, there's an actual movement, and it's like a golden mean movement. You can do it, you can experience it yourself as you're doing it. You can actually go to this particular site, you don't have to, and listen to an activation that I'm going to have as well. And what it will do is it will align you with this particular movement up through the lower chakras, of this creative
Mm.
movement. And I'm going to have more information about this, but people will be able to kind of come to the areas that I'm doing this, and I'm going to put it on a website. So, once I have the CathleenaHailley.com website up, they can follow me and be able to participate in this. And it'll be, and my intent is to put these in place kind of, and then go travel to these different areas at different times again and have groups come. And I think that'll be extremely powerful because we can do it in groups of activating these particular creative energies.
Right on.
To bring things into the world. So this is something that's coming forward.
2 more gather. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
Powerful.
strong.
Right on. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd also, if you want, not to recruit you to the Soulogy group, it's really, it's a place where there's a lot of engaged people. Probably about 65%. Last time I checked, 65-70% on a weekly basis. A lot of people expand awareness about what they're doing, different events they have in there, and you're welcome to post in there because I've watched a lot of people's enterprises and initiatives expand dramatically because I've received the messages.
And where is that?
It's in the Soulogy group on Facebook.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's a Soulogy group on Facebook, and it's a great place to get the word out. I've watched a lot of people do it. A lot of people have sent me testimonials, building groups, building events, and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Are you in the Detroit area too, like Ethan and them?
No, I'm actually in Asheville, North Carolina. It's funny you were talking about how you have your house. I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to be right now. I mean, I'm here right now, but I feel like I'm going to go somewhere.
We did that. We've done that. I left for good October 13th, 2016, and she came the first time in the summer of 17, but it's been like this for 3.5 years. It's just, but now over the last month, we found an affordable place to, and so, and I think it's paralleling, what's happening with a lot of people, well, some are moving on, some are doing what you're about to do,
right.
And I'm hearing a lot of that, particularly women. I'm hearing, hey, I'm being pushed, it's time to come out. And by the way, we encourage everybody, women and men, but anybody wants to come out, this is a platform that will support you to do that.
Yes, thank you. And I love your work, and thank you so much. And
well, thank you. And I'd love to collaborate with you again.
Yeah, I love that too.
In the future, later in the year. And I feel really good about it. I'm really happy to meet you. I'm glad that you went through Morgan and we got this thing worked out.
Yay.
And if you get on the road, hit me up. Let me know where you're going.
I would love to. And if we have a minute, if you want, I can do.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
I want to see that. Yes.
All right. Let's
experience that.
Yeah. Let's do a little activation here. We'll do a crystalline DNA reset. How about that? All right.
Right on.
All right. So it's up to you if you want to feel like closing your eyes. If you don't have to. Let's take some deep breaths. We'll just do it for the whole audience here. The process that happens with this crystalline DNA is I start to see individuals sitting kind of cross-legged, and then it's as though they're sitting in a big bowl, and this liquid light begins to come up around them. So I'm starting to see that. It'll come up all the way up around you. And it covers the individual. That's though they stand up and the body gets wrung one way like a towel and the other, which is just now happening. And then it disappears into liquid light as liquid. Now it's going to begin to come back into form. What we're doing is we're just bringing the physical body into its original, kind of the carbon DNA, we'll say, into the original as we're aligning the crystalline DNA. Just have everybody take a deep breath. I'm just going to bring this into this 0 point so that individuals can feel what true neutrality feels like within their core being now. I'm just going to rest them in, and what we're dissipating is all that chaos frequency. To neutral. There we go. Let me take a deep breath. Great. All right. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Tell me
So
how
it
you
is.
So it is.
Very cool. My third eye just went bananas. I don't know what that-
Fantastic. Loved it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're a lovely, beautiful, beloved sister. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing a space with us and honoring us with your presence. I look forward to collaborating with you again in the future if you'll have me.
Yes, absolutely.
Please let me know if you hit the road. So, that's all about networking, collaboration, co-creation. We know people all over the country and,
Absolutely.
you never
Thank
know.
I
Okay.
love it. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to be in Mount Shasta in August, so that's going to be cool too.
I was hoping to go over there and see Judith Kuzel. I really like Judith. And
Nice.
she's going to be there, Sedona, Shasta, August, September. So I
Oh,
kind of
cool.
have it earmarked on my, on my
Well,
calendar.
If you head out anywhere, then let us know.
Yeah, I'll do so. You take care.
You too. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thanks.
Best to you and yours. Okay.